Hi group. Here we are. I can't believe that the term is almost halfway over. It seems incredible. Seems like it's gone kind of fast. I had a kind of a tough time with the lesson planning, not because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was just a little more extensive than what I thought. And stressed out about a little bit more. Ended up with like 12 pages of stuff. So I hope that's going to suffice when I go to do my workshop. I got some really great material, I think. I'm doing my workshop on effective communication in relationships, and I'm focusing it a lot on not only relationships between like a husband and wife, but effective communication even with your kids, but more specifically how men can communicate effectively with women and vice versa, because we are so different and we process information so differently. So that's kind of what I'm concentrating my workshop on. So as far as the questions go, on chapter 4, it says that asks about what is the specific principle in the component display theory that I liked, that I thought would be effective. And I put down that I loved using stories as principles. I am not good at all when it comes to remembering where stories are, like in the scriptures. I can't say, oh yeah, that is in Alma 32, around verse 15. But I can remember the stories and the principles behind that story, and lots of times I'll relate that to real life situations, and I'll say, oh, that is just like when, I don't know, that's just like when Jacob was praying in the woods, let's say. And so I can really relate to stories. So that is the thing that stood out to me. Let's see, I'm reading here. Oh, and when I think it is important that when you present new principles to an audience, that you have sort of a story behind that to illustrate the principle. For instance, like if you were explaining in effective communication what a double bind communication is, that is kind of like it's kind of a no-win type of situation where, for example, if when a wife tells her husband that he loves her, when a husband tells his wife that he loves her, but she goes to give him a kiss and he kind of like backs away, that message is sent the opposite of what his words were. So having a story behind the principle, I think, can help. In chapter 5, most likely you have taught in some setting before. What have you learned about involving others? Well, I feel like I have taught for years and years and years without the money or the certification. I actually do teach right now as a librarian in an elementary school, so I'm expected to have lesson plans and learning workshops every day for the kids, whether it be like author studies or whether it be like learning different genres of books. So I've been doing that for several years, and of course I've taught in young women more years than I can count. But what I can think is the most important about that is that when you involve others, you actually learn insight as well as other people do. I have learned so much by opening up a discussion and saying, well, what do you think about that? Or how do you feel about that? And I've been so enriched with answers that I never thought of before, and also helps the rest of the audience members in their learning experience. Okay, so from 6 and 7, it says, what ideas about teaching stood out to you? Well, I used the same thing as personal stories. For one thing, like the sacrament meeting talks and the general conference talks I remember are the ones that had personal stories related to it. I wrote down that I believe that makes the audience like not feel so alone in their journey, and if they can see that you worked out a solution to that, then they can work out a solution to it as well. I think that stories can either be inspirational or they can be warnings about pitfalls in certain situations. So I think it also connects the presenter with the audience in that the audience can see why you're so passionate about a particular subject. The second one I did, why do family life educators need to be sensitive to differences that exist in families and individuals? For one thing, in the book I talked about different cultural interpretations. I have 3 daughters, and 2 of them actually live on different continents. One lives in South Africa, one lives here in the United States, and one lives in Brazil. And just in talking to them, and of course living here, the